outlier compared to the pool of articles which have been kind of spewed out by the marketing companies and the PR, and you would assume they are not correct because they say something different. And you tend to, humans have the tendency to trust the majority, even if the majority is actually a kind of a dependent thing where one link depends on the previous one, and eventually it all comes down to one single point that all this information comes from. Now, if we look at I consider many of my articles to be outliers in the sense that they make observations which I give as many links as possible for, to say this is the fact, these are the facts. This is probably not what you see in this website and that website, but all of them basically repeat what's in the press release. But I have different numbers that show something different, and I have the best form of proof we've had, and we have lots of posts. We had lots of posts previous years when we had the leaked documents from companies like Microsoft, but also there was Media Defender before with the media companies. This is a really nice example of how the copyright industry, the copyright debate parallels the free software issues. You had basic quotes from the companies saying the things that are true, while they basically say what they'll do publicly. So you see statements like Bill Gates, for example, talking about trying to evangelize something in the press, which means basically trying to kind of spin something in the press, but then he admits that the product is deficient, or there was a trial before on Vista, and they had some sealed documents which were eventually unsealed, and you could see that Microsoft itself knew that Vista was deficient. People were complaining about it before releasing the thing, but if you look back at the launch date in 2007 with all the PR and all the orchestration of the thing, you see them sitting excited, show us your wow, and Vista is out, it's wonderful, and it's great, and everyone's buying it. But even months before, you see the internal emails, you see that they were basically lying and trying to completely change the picture and push a different picture into the press. We have the documents to show that. And that's extremely useful. That's also extremely useful now with WikiLeaks, what they're doing in the war logs. They try to go into the raw data and the reports and show it's not in alignment with the corresponding articles back in 2005 and 4 and so on.
I think to conclude very quickly, that in respect of Vista, certainly with the things happening on the outside, being all happy and fluffy, and on the internally maybe something else going a bit awry. What Vista was the turning point for me, and I'm very resentful about Vista because when I voiced my concerns and complaints about Vista and highlighted the problems that everybody talks about now as if they were sort of just part of history, myself and other people who did the same were called liars. It was suggested that we were on a campaign of hate against Microsoft, and I get quite resentful when I hear the word Vista, because we were saying these things about the product, and now obviously we have Windows 7, and of course because that's the new product, people are quite happy to talk about the failings or shortcomings of Vista, and everything's forgotten because they have the new version out. So that's sort of a little bit of a sticking point with me, but certainly that was a turning point for me, Vista, when I realised, hang on a minute, I'm experiencing this, they're calling me a liar, they're making out that I'm saying things because I'm on some sort of campaign of hate, yet when I switch on my PC, Vista is failing.
They actually did the same thing, they did the most recent release in 7. I'm not sure you've seen that.
No, I used 7 for a couple of months just to be able to say that I had given it a try. And I didn't have anything in particular gripe about it, other than I kept asking myself, and I even had a Microsoft advocate at the time come onto the blog, and my big question was, what is this offering me that I can't do already faster with Linux? And I couldn't find an answer to that. And to be fair, the Microsoft advocate that spoke to me, I can't remember his name for the life of me now, but he couldn't answer me either. So I wasn't particularly impressed nor disgusted with it, but I didn't spend that long. I think, to be fair, on Windows 7, if I was to give a proper review of it, I would have to spend a lot longer with the system to be able to say, right, this is what I don't like. But like I say, since I moved away from the Windows platform at home, haven't had an issue, and I haven't had any reason to even think about any other sort of alternative now. So yes,
probably should point out, for the first time since 2004 or 2005, I had to install Wine. That's just that's not an emulator. It's more of a compatibility layer for Windows executables. And the reason I had to do it is a specific program I had to use, a very small one. It's an MRI viewer. But what I did find is that it's matured a lot. I'm not sure if you've used it recently, have you?
I had it installed. My most recent usage was a couple of months ago when I was testing a Windows media player, funnily enough, that somebody was claiming was better than a native Linux one. I actually had a look at what was supposed to be a better piece of software. So I used it then, and I had my flirtation with World of Warcraft a few years ago. But it's certainly matured. It's certainly a very good package. It's just that now I happen not to have a requirement from any Windows binaries really.
Yeah, I have two reasons for bringing this. The first one is to do with you said what can you do in Windows you cannot do in Linux. Well, in Linux you can run Windows executables. Can you run in Windows like sort of natively? Can you run Linux binaries? The answer is a bit complicated. You have this project called Lena, which is supposed to do all kinds of things, but I haven't heard about it in months now, and it's also what's also quite interesting about Wine. It's it's a lot more mature now, and I think in some sense it can give you better compatibility. I think with Windows sometimes than Windows 7 or Vista can give you, because one of the issues you have is one of the reasons corporate customers of Microsoft do not upgrade from XP to Vista or to Windows 7 is that they cannot get the applications to work quite so well. Now, what you could say to them, well, you can move to Fedora and run the way I do it, and run Wine with it, and basically run your old applications with a very good performance. You don't need the VM type technology you have in 7 or trying to kind of emulate in XP mode, or to try to run it under a virtual, not sure if it's the virtual box, but they use some sort of way of trying to run application in XP mode if you really have to run something which doesn't work in Windows 7. Now, so again, you say, well, Linux can do that too. Actually, it can do it better in some ways. And from what I've heard, sometimes it runs certain applications you cannot run in Windows 7. It actually you can actually run in the latest Wine. But companies don't know that. They don't know they have this option, or they feel kind of afraid because they heard something or they read something in the comments on the internet.
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to look at this again because it's like I say, I don't keep up with Windows that much, but I was sure that for the XP compatibility mode, it didn't have DX support, DirectX support. I don't know if that's still the case now or whether it was ever the case, but I'm going to have to check that out. But I'm not sure. I remember somebody saying something about this at the time when 7 was coming out, and
I haven't heard anything since then. I've been reading Microsoft News very, very closely since then. So I think if anything changed, I probably would have seen that.
I'll check. I'll check it out for the next episode, but I'm quite sure, and I believe, again, I'll have to check this out, but I think that the XP mode wasn't available on all versions of Windows 7 either. I believe it was the more expensive ones. I'm not sure which.
You had issues with the hardware, so certain hardware did not support. Actually, I'm not sure if it's to do with acceleration of graphics, but I know that certain processors weren't too happy with running the XP mode, or is it called XP mode, or I think they have a different
it'll probably have a fancy name, no, Microsoft, but yeah, XP mode. I'm quite sure at the time I read somebody questioning, well, how is this any better than Wine or just sticking with XP? I'll have a look for the next episode because, like I say, I did follow this at the time when 7 was just about to be released, of course, because all the hype was there and people were making all sorts of wild claims about it. And I'll have a look for the next show. But it's certainly interesting because, like I say, most Linux users I know now very rarely dip back into the world of Windows binaries. What I would like to see, certainly if companies are going to only release a Windows binary of their software. It would be nice, I think, for the future, if they're not prepared to make a native Linux version, to have some sort of wine compliance as maybe a standard with their releases. I'm not talking about the major software houses, because